Welcome to Science Night Live. Are you guys enjoying yourself so far? It's a pretty resounding yes. I want to introduce you. It is our genuine pleasure to welcome an actual real-life astronaut, Andrew M. Allen here, a veteran of 3 Space Shuttle missions. We have a quick introductory clip here to introduce him.
Commander Andy Allen has emerged from the building, followed by his pilot, Scott Horowitz. And Hello Commander Constantine Diaz. 12, 11, 10, 9, 8, 7. We have a go for main engine. 5, 3, 2, 1. And we have liftoff of the Space Shuttle Columbia, continuing space research through tether satellite technology.
Roger roll, Columbia.
Thank you. Okay. We tested you just 10.
Concur. Looking good. That's just spectacular.
The LDCE experiment holds a total of about 250 samples of various materials that are under study for use in spacecraft, in building future spacecraft.
Columbia now descending at an angle 7 times steeper than that of a commercial jetliner on final approach as it darts its way through the scattered clouds over the shuttle landing facility.
Copy on it, 90.
Allen about to flare up the orbiter's nose. Landing gear now beginning to be deployed by pilot Scott Horowitz. Main gear touchdown.
Ladies and gentlemen, with honor, Andrew Allen.
Okay, well, thank you all very much. Thanks for coming out here. Thanks for supporting this event here at the Science Center. It's walking around a little bit. I actually hadn't been here before, so walking around a little bit. I thought they did a fantastic job of putting this event together. It's really wonderful. So looking around the room a little bit, I wasn't sure exactly what I was going to expect since I hadn't been here before. So let me, if you don't mind me being, it's a little bit politically incorrect, but that's just kind of the way I am. In my intro, by the way, so to clarify a couple things, I did go to Top Gun, which is that Naval Fighter Weapons School. There was a movie out there, some little short guy made it called Tom Cruise, and he got paid a lot of money pretending to do what other people do every day. And he obviously did a good job because people remember the movie. So I did go there. Kelly McGillis wasn't there when I went. But it was still pretty entertaining, and it was still just a great opportunity to be a fighter pilot, to be a Marine, and to do the kind of things that we get trained to do. So I did spend 20 years in the Marine Corps, actually 10 of which were with NASA. Let's see. I didn't know how many hours I spent in space, but so now I know. It was in the intro. So that was good. I appreciate that. Some folks put that together for me, and I really enjoyed that. I know that I've got a lot of miles on me. I think it's, I don't know, 15 million miles or 17 million miles, or somebody could probably calculate that as well. But so if I forget what I'm saying, forgive me. If I fall, forgive me. But it's one way to remember the evening that we're going to have. So I'm going to try to go through the slides pretty quickly because I get kicked out of here at 9:50 or something like that, I think. Yes. So, but looking around a little bit, I wanted to ask you a couple of questions, like I said. Everybody here obviously has made it to 21. If you haven't, don't admit it. Some of you have turned 30, so that's kind of a big event. You've turned 30, right? And there's some of you that are pushing 40. And that's kind of cool. Make it to 40, that's good. Some of you have actually reached 50, maybe. Okay. And some of you have actually made it to 60. That's like me, right? Some of you might have reached 70. And then 80, it all works in reverse, right? 80, you just reach lunch. You make it to dinner. I'm making that up because I'm not there yet, but I'm sure I will be one day as I try to get through all of those events in one day as opposed to over the decades. The point I was trying to make on all of that is the fact that it goes fast. Sometimes we have really long days, but our weeks and our months, and believe it or not, our years go really fast. I used to think that if somebody could remember 20 years ago, they were pretty ancient folks. And here I am. And so my first fighter squadron, I was voted least likely to live past 30. And here I am, so they were wrong. So what I want to talk about is, I'm just going to talk about from an astronaut's perspective a little bit on the journey to Mars. So I'll kind of go through these quickly, and I have two choices here. One choice is to just use up the whole time going through the slides. And the other choice is to go through the slides and leave some time for Q&A. And it really depends on you all, because I don't care, really. No, I mean, I do care. There's few questions I haven't heard, so I think I can answer most every question. What I have learned about walking around here this evening is that there's probably a lot of folks here that are a whole lot smarter than I am, so I'm worried about the Q&A period, so I might shorten it up a little bit. So we're here. We're here tonight. I've had some just wonderful, beautiful, fantastic opportunities to do what I've done and to have the blessings that I've had and the gifts so much that I've had, what I would call the God-given gifts for me to be able to make it. It is part of, so I came out of there's two kinds of astronauts. There's pilots and there's mission specialists. So the pilots, we all come out of the military. So tactical pilots, we call it mostly, and then pretty much we're all test pilots. So you've got to get through test pilot school. And somewhere along the way, you've got to exhibit some high-stress flying. And what that means is you've had to scare yourself at least a number of times and almost died a few times and not sure whether you're going to get back or make it home. And then you made it. So then you say you could experience high-stress flying. And it becomes important really for NASA because you meet you meet the folks that actually survived, and then you meet the folks that actually have dealt with some pretty significant stresses And not everybody gets to go through life and death situations almost on a daily basis. And that's kind of part what the pilot group is like. And then we have the mission specialists. And the mission specialists are really the smart ones, right? They're the scientists. They're the engineers, the doctors. We don't have any lawyers. But they're the science-motivated folks. So they're the engineers, the doctors. We actually had a veterinarian on board. It was pretty cool when I was there. Physicist, astrophysicist. So some really, really smart people. And it's a good combination of those to have. And that's kind of what we did in the shuttle program. And obviously that's what we're going to do going forward into the other new programs that are out there. So I always want to talk about why we are here, because if you can think about going back a little bit, and if you can think about history, for those that still remember history, on Jamestown and Plymouth Rock. I mean, those are Columbus, 1490. So, in the scheme of the universe, the 300 or 400 or 500 years that we've had since then, we've done a lot. We've accomplished a lot. We've gone off the planet and back, and they could never fathom that. I had a grandmother who was born before the turn of the century, so 1894. And so in her lifetime, there were cars and airplanes and big ships and airlines and transport. And she never learned how to drive because she didn't think that was right. She lived in Philadelphia and would just take the cable cars. Never flew in her life. She died at a ripe old age of about 90. So she saw a lot in that lifetime, in just a very short period of, in the big scheme of things, of a short period of life. But a lot of things happened in that lifetime. When I got selected into the Astronaut Corps, and I called her up and was telling her, Grandma, I got selected to be an astronaut. And like usually all grandmothers say, well, that's very nice. I'm very happy for you. I'm very proud of you. Will you be moving to California? And I said, no, Grandma, all the astronauts go to Houston, Texas. And she says, well, they never really landed on the moon. So you're going to go to California. I said, Grandma, I really think I'm going to Houston. She ended up dying before my first flight, but in my mind, she had a better seat anyhow, and she really figured it out that, yeah, I did get off the planet for at least a little while. And I attained all of my goals, and the biggest goals I had in my life really were to have as many landings as I had takeoffs. So I go back to we are here, and the point I'm trying to make in this slide, it really is about, think about the folks that were in these places that we know very well today a few hundred years ago, and they had no idea what was around the bend in the river or what was over the hill. And that's where we're at. So we think we're smart, we think we're talented, we think we know a lot. We really don't know. I was going to say squat, and then I'm trying to stop myself from saying we don't know a lot. We're not as smart as we think we are. Just think about medical science. It seems like every time something comes up or somebody goes to the doctor, and if you really study a lot of things like cancers and things like that, you really start to understand how much you don't know. You don't know more than what you do know. So we don't know what we don't know. So we go to Congress, we testify, we try to tell them what we're going to find when we go up in space, and we really don't have any idea. We really don't. And nor do they, by the way. So we have a long way to go. And those of us, maybe some of you in the room have watched a series called Star Trek, or have heard of a movie series called Star Wars, which probably I know all of you have. But sometimes the difference between fact and fiction is time, really. I mean, if you think about my grandmother's lifetime, there was things that people couldn't fathom that were fiction. And in that lifetime that she had of almost 100 years, it became reality. And so we can get there. I don't know if we'll ever beam up or anything, but or exceed the speed of sound. But the speed of light, but we might. You just don't know. Eventually Newton's going to be wrong on something. So here we are. So we're taking these little baby steps because we're back here in Jamestown or Plymouth Rock, and we have no idea what's over the other side of the hill. The explorers have gone out there, so we send explorers out there, and we want the explorers to tell us what it's like on the other side of the hill. And explorers are kind of sometimes the crazier folk that will go out there and do things because they don't mind taking the risk to do things, and they think there's some relevance and importance in taking those kinds of risks. And the settlers want to stay and be in the safety of whatever the confines are that they have. So we don't have any idea what's out there. We think that we have this galaxy, and I was waiting for somebody to raise their hand and tell me that the Earth's in the wrong place in this galaxy, but maybe it is. We're probably a little closer to the edge. But then I would tell you, nobody really knows what our galaxy looks like anyhow, so it's a safe bet. So if we have a few 100 billion stars in our galaxy, and there's a few 100 billion galaxies that are out there in the world, then Carl Sagan is correct, and he says that there's probably more stars in this vast universe that we have out there than there are individual grains of sand on this planet. It's a lot. No matter what, it's a lot, and we have no idea what it is. And so where might we be in 300 or 400 years? And it'd probably be cool to be able to get frozen and come back and see about it. But again, we're back here in Plymouth Rock, we're back here in Jamestown, and our generations to come are going to do some pretty fascinating things. So we're trying to take these baby steps, and one of the baby steps we're trying to take is to get a little bit further off the planet than we have been before. So that's supposed to be Mars. That's on the right-hand side, and that's Earth. Somebody's going to tell me the dimensions aren't correct, but just work with me here. So it is about science. It's about exploration, and we're trying to build the technologies that allow us to go do these things. Think about getting from Plymouth Rock and Jamestown to the point that we're the United States of America. A whole lot had to happen in that time frame. So a whole lot of technology had to come along to make all of that happen, whether it be communications, whether it be logistics, whether it be medicine, whether it be weapons. Whatever it was, a lot of things had to happen for us to be able to make that journey to create what we have today, which is the United States of America. So we do a lot of things that we call Earth-dependent, in low Earth orbit, kind of hanging around. A few hundred miles up, you could drive there in 4 hours if you could drive straight up. But we're learning a lot while we're up there, mostly about ourselves. Human physiology is pretty fascinating, and it changes pretty drastically when we're up in space, and we still don't understand all the reasons why. Get a little bit further out, we call it a proving ground. This is part of the asteroids, going out a little bit further into space. A little bit harder to get home if something goes wrong. And eventually we get to where we want to be independent of the Earth. And that's what we're trying to do in this journey back to Mars. Along the way, I hope, we get to do things not unlike what we did hundreds of years ago, where we get to settle things and pioneer things along the way. So maybe we can have a little bit of a colony on the moon. We have any educators in the room? Teachers? Those kinds of folks? Well good. I ought to applaud you because I think you're great. I didn't like science until I got into 7th grade, and then there was that one teacher that made it work for me. And so I think it's a great, rewarding opportunity. We have 3 times as many lawyers as we have engineers. I'm not trying to insult any lawyers that are in the room. But I'd like to have more engineers to help us get to where we need to go and to help us get outside our solar system. So we're getting ready for trying to get to Mars. It's kind of a slow process. We don't go real fast, but there's a lot of things that we want to do, and we want to do it right, and we want everybody to have one landing for every takeoff. So we have coming up here in a couple of years, Exploration Mission 1. It's going to go out. It'll go out towards the moon, a little bit past the moon, and then come back to Earth to prove that we can do this and to prove that this new vehicle works. So part of the vehicle is the Space Launch System. That's the rocket that goes boom on it. It's got a bunch of different pieces. It's got a whole lot of statistics that go along with it. It's eventually in one of the second design mods, it'll be larger than the Saturn V rocket, much more powerful than the Saturn V rocket. But that's what's going to get us off the planet, give us the velocity to get out of low Earth orbit. Okay, do you do this, Russell? So this is the rocket, one of the solid rocket boosters. We had 4-segment solid rocket booster on Space Shuttle. This is a 5-segment solid rocket booster. It'll look much cooler when it's in the vertical, and there's 2 of them. But you know, you take those baby steps to get where you need to go. By the same token, we have these main engines, and Russell, you can run these things. They also produce a lot of thrust. The hardest thing we have to do is get out of the Earth's atmosphere. That's where all the power is required. So the day you launch, you know that when those solid boosters light off and you're laying on your back and you feel it, I mean, there's no doubt in your mind a significant event has just occurred in your life. I mean, you might wonder how it's going to turn out because you don't know, but a significant event has occurred that you're just never going to forget. And it's a lot of power. And we've got to get that power to get us outside this atmosphere. That's where once we get outside the atmosphere and we're in space, you can have very little puffs of thrust, and you can do a lot of things with those little puffs of thrust. On top of it, where we're going to have the astronauts doing their thing, is going to be the Orion Spacecraft. It's a capsule. We've gone back to the capsule, so we've kind of gone back in time a little bit. And it comes in a variety of different pieces and sizes and shapes. The capsule probably can fit 6 people in if we had to. The plan is for 4 people. And we can put various attachments on the back of it and other modules that will help take us out there to the moon, as well as if we want to go to Mars, this is the vehicle that will take us to Mars. Technology, this is really to remind you the kinds of things that we have to do to be able to make such a long distance out there. We've got to have the weakest part of building a rocket to take us someplace like Mars is us. It's the people. I mean, it's really kind of a pain. It's easier to have robots out there. It's very difficult to have the people out there because you got to take care of them, and they're really hard to take care of. And even sometimes they get temperamental, so they break stuff too. So you've got to compensate and be smart about all of that and allow things to fail because things are going to fail. Anybody see The Martian? Actually, anybody not see The Martian? Go see The Martian. It's better than the air show up at Oceana. So go see The Martian. And it's kind of cool. It's just because it shows how people will rally. It's the human nature. When you're forced with it, you either give up or you figure it out. And you keep, if plan A doesn't work, you go to plan B. If plan B doesn't work, you go to plan C. You just keep on going, either until you die or it works. And that's kind of what we are brought up in the military world, especially because you make a plan and you know the plan's going to change. So plan on the plan changing. It's the same kind of life that we live trying to get rockets off the ground. And then we have what we do, the contract that I'm on, which is at the Kennedy Space Center. That Jacobs is the prime contractor. Our customer is called the Ground Support and Development Operations. And they do all the pieces of the things that have to make everything work, process, integrate, put the pieces together. They come in boxes sometimes, some assembly required, and we go figure out what needs to happen and get it all put together. Go in launch control, go, no go, push the button, mouse click, whatever we do, and this thing goes off the pad. So pretty complex, and that's what we do. I have a daughter that was 10 on my last space flight, and so I had a 20th anniversary of a space flight not too long ago, and she sent me a text. And the text basically was, Dad, congratulations, 20 years ago today, right at this time, you were leaving the Earth, you were off the pad. And here it is 20 years later, and you haven't gotten very far. So I'm still at the Kennedy Space Center. I'm back to the Kennedy. I have wandered away, and I've gone back to the Kennedy Space Center, but she's right. And I'll tell you why that happens in a little while, because it's my passion. So we're going to have one more video for you. Rush, you can run it. And this is just to talk about what we're going to be doing at the Kennedy Space Center. Now we're trying to get ready for this very first rocket to go up into space. These are the companies that we have working on the contract. Jacobs is the prime. Has anybody here seen a shuttle on? But it's very cool to see a shuttle on. You hear the noise, you hear the rumble. I don't know if you thought about those of us that were inside, but a lot of acronyms, a world of acronyms. That one was rotating the solid rocket motor. This is where we're going to service the Orion Spacecraft. It's called the MPPF. Back to the Apollo, we're going to splash down in the ocean. Astronauts are going to come back from 6 months or a year or whatever and get seasick. That's what's going to happen. It'll be a much more powerful rocket than the Space Shuttle. Make a lot more noise, a lot more vibration. Okay, so here's where I'm going to finish off just by a few words, and then we'll do some Q&A. So again, I go back to, we're here. We're trying to make this happen. Could we have made it happen a long time ago? Sure. It's about funding. You know, unfortunately, it's about politics. Sometimes, if anybody's ever been over to the Visitor Center at the Kennedy Space Center, the first time I saw this wonderful vehicle named Atlantis on a pedestal, it broke my heart. But it wasn't about that vehicle was ready to retire. It was about the politics. It was about the funding. It was about the budget. It was about the priorities, about all those kinds of things. So we think we have a track now. So we think that we're going to get there from here. And we really need the kind of support to do this. And why do we do this stuff? So if you think about it, you know, there's always the things about energizing the youth and getting people excited about science and technology, and being a technologist like this really is cool. I mean, it really is a lot of fun. And if you haven't figured it out by now, you know, it doesn't take a lot of intelligence to get strapped into a rocket. And my mother told me it was a lack of intelligence to get strapped into a rocket. But the intelligence is the people that make it happen. It's the people that think about it. It's the people that understand it. There's a lot of stuff that's going on in this museum that I don't understand. But there's a lot of smart people that do. And it's about those smart people all coming together and making this all work. So why do we do that? So yeah, we have all those kinds of things. But to me, there's a lot of it about technology. And technology builds wealth, really. It's about the economics of technology. For those that study anything in history, some of the great civilizations of all time have become great and have lost their greatness because of the technology advantages that they had over those that oppose them. And so there is a lot of that, and it's kind of a soft power, I call it. It's a power that builds technology that helps us build our economic value and our economic wealth of this nation. And at the same time, it's not like the Department of Defense. But the greatest drivers of technology are really Department of Defense and NASA. We have some great technologies that we build. The technologies that we need to get from here to Mars are the same kinds of technologies that will help people here every day on Earth. And the investments that we made in the Apollo program have paid off many times more. So sometimes it's hard to get people to understand why they should invest in a 401k, but you ought to if you don't. But it's the same kind of a thing as making an investment. The payoff will be there. It's pretty well guaranteed to be there. And as you're trying to get these fragile creatures called humans to someplace far away and get them through the radiation belts and get them to a point that they can handle what they need to handle and have all the things they need to be able to do the job, you've got to have the technologies that support that. So if we can grow plants up in space, we can grow plants in the desert down here on Earth. The biggest benefactor probably of the things that we do up in space is medical science, imaging systems, or some of the technologies we do just to try to isolate cells where we can try to cure cancers. Those kinds of things we can do much, much better up in space. And one of the jobs that we have that we don't talk a whole lot about as astronauts is we're, as the doctors call us, a unique data set. So they do a lot of experiments on us. It's not quite like the Gestapo did, I don't think, way back when. But, you know, sometimes we feel that way. You're going to put what where? You know, so we still get some of those kinds of things from those medical groups that study us. And at the end of it all, they come back and they say, shoot, you guys are all different. You know, we got to figure this out and what makes sense and what doesn't. And I had an experiment once, and it was a sleep rhythm experiment where I had to do a lot of sleep shifting. And as they were trying to figure out my circadian rhythms and change my circadian rhythms, they had an EKG hooked up on me, a portable EKG with a big box on the side. They had blood pressure cuff that went off every 15, 20 minutes. And then they're monitoring my sleep cycles. And I came back and they're like, well, you didn't really do a very good job of sleeping very well. And I said, well, I have this stupid blood pressure cuff that's going up here every day. And it's hard to lay on this box because I like to little sleep on my right side. Well, we'd like to do this experiment again on you, and by the way, we'd like to get a temperature readout all the time. Okay, where are you going to get that temperature readout from? And the good thing about being a commander is you can decide who gets what experiments. So it's easy to bribe, and it's easy to take bribes from your crewmates because the man will pick it. So who are these folks that need to go out there and go do this? Who are these people that are these pioneers, that are these explorers that need to go do that? There's a few of them around. There's a whole lot more that have to come out into the business. And what do? I really think that I'm more of a jack of all trades and a master of none is what I've always talked about, because we learn a lot. So somebody says, well, you got to be a master of something. And so I can fly airplanes. I know how to do that. I can go straight up and straight down. I can shoot things down. I can blow things up. So it's made me think about it a little bit. And so in this generic group of people that we need to go out here and go do this before the settlers can go out there and go do their thing, we got to have these explorers, and we need more of them. And as much as some of us would go again, you know, we get to the point that physiologically we can't, unless they can stop the aging process. So we're masters of what? We're masters of learning. I think that's an easy one. We learn a lot. I didn't know. I went into engineering in college because my verbal SATs were so low. So I decided I had to be an engineer because I couldn't be somebody that knew anything about the humanities. And I go into space, and I come back from space, and I say how cool it is and how great it is and how wonderful it is. And I know I lack the gift of the humanities of really explaining what the feelings were and really explaining what the view was, because it's unique and you can't explain everything. And it's kind of like if you go to the summit, if you climb the summit of Mount Everest, you can't stay there, but you have the knowledge of what it was like when you were there. And you have to come back down, and that's what we do. And we have the knowledge, but some of us aren't as gifted as others in explaining really what it all means. So there's a lot of people that have to teach us. There's a lot of people that have to train us. And even a Marine can learn if they get the right teachers and educators to help them. We're masters of complexity. It's very complex. What we do is very difficult. It's multitasking. It's handling a lot of emergencies at the same time because that's the way we're trained. There's a lot of training that we get where there's a lot of things that can happen in a vehicle like we fly, like the Space Shuttle, where things can go wrong. And it doesn't matter who you are. Same thing with flying airplanes sometimes. It's just not your day. It doesn't matter who you are, how well you're trained. It's just not your day. Maybe they'll name a school after you or a road or something, but you're not surviving the event that just occurred. You can't think about that stuff. Solid rocket motor might come apart on you. You can't think about that because you can't do anything about it. There's the kinds of things that anybody can handle, the least trained person can handle. And those are easy. So what we focus on is we focus on the things that the best trained people in the world can handle. The people that know what to do, when to do it, can analyze something within a split second, and it's the difference between life and death. Especially the two guys that sit up in the front seat, the pilot and the commander. They got 1,500 switches at their disposal, any one of which could ruin everybody's day and shut down the nation's space program. So we have to deal with that complexity, and we get good at it. It takes a long time. So it was like 5 years from the time I got there with all the experiences I had until I actually got to fly. I think we're masters of risk. We take a lot of risk. It doesn't always work out. We've lost people, but there isn't any exploration program I can think of in history where you haven't lost people, where you haven't learned something or found something out that you had no idea was going to happen or had no idea how to even think about it beforehand. You don't know what you don't know, so you go find out what you don't know. And accidents happen, and mistakes happen, and some people lose their lives over it. And it's not that we're fearless. I don't like using that word. We're not. It's just that if somebody asked me how to define courage, to me it's not being fearless, not being without fear. It's just realizing that there's something more important than managing your fear. And you manage your fear. So something's got a higher priority than your fear. And there's a lot of people that do that. It's not just the astronauts. You think about all the folks that go into chaos as opposed to the folks that are running out of chaos, as opposed to the folks that create the chaos in the first place. I mean, those people should be respected and admired because they're going in to fix it. And they're putting something at a much higher priority than themselves. And that's kind of what we do. So we try to take risks smartly. We don't try to take risks dumb. It's not perfect for all of us. I still go over the speed limit sometimes, and people say that's risky. But I try. I try to be better. And the people, the environment that we live in is just an absolutely wonderful, great environment to be in. It's the people that want to have purpose. It's the people that have commitment. It's the people that have passion. There is no greater passionate workforce that I've ever met than the people that work to make the rockets safe. You know, forget your troubles, forget your woes. When you get to work, make sure you torque those bolts down right. Make sure you cotter pin the things you got to cotter pin. Make sure you check and balance. Don't just sign something off. Make sure it's right before you sign it off. There's people at the Kennedy Space Center that I would never let near one of my daughters that work on space vehicles, but I trust them with my life because I know they go in and they do the job right. And it's the people with purpose that makes it a great place to be. They're the kind of people that believe in the country, believe in the nation, believe in what we do. They're the kind of people that stand up when the Star Spangled Banner is playing. I mean, they're people that are patriotic. They're people that believe in this nation. There's people that believe in the goals that we live to, the things that we're trying to go do. So it's a great place to be. So I gravitate back to that place. I went off for a little while, and then I kind of gravitated on back. So I love it. I love the people, and that's what keeps bringing me back there. And we're going to have the people that are going to get out there and explore some more. We're going to have the people that are going to get out there and settle. Somebody might be leaving the planet, and 150 years later, their third generation lands on another Earth somewhere. We do have to do this, by the way. If you think about anything else, think about that a single species on a single planet probably isn't going to survive forever. So eventually that single species on that single planet isn't going to be there anymore, or that planet won't be there anymore. So we have to move on at some point in time. We've got to get a whole lot smarter. Star Trek has to become real. A bunch of fighter pilots went to the first showing of Star Wars when I was a young fighter pilot. And we were all, after the movie, we all came back. We were in the little barracks tents that we were living in. We were on a deployment somewhere. And we were all pontificating and looking at the philosophies of all the things that were really important about what we just saw. So we were trying to do the cliff notes of what we just saw in this movie. So we figured out that the three morals that came out of the movie, one is that there would always be fighter pilots. So we were pretty happy about that. We also learned that there would always be fighter bars. So we were pretty happy about that. It's a place you could go, relax, wet your whistle. And then the third one was eventually the guys in our back seat would be replaced by robots. And that was really made us very happy, those of us that were in the front seats. Well, I'm going to go ahead and stop it here, tell you thank you. And I think we've got about 10 minutes or so for Q&A, right? Then I guess we're out of time. Any quickies? Yes, sir.
We got up there? I think we have time for one question.
I'm sorry. I should have gone faster.
Why parachute into the ocean?
The decision that they made on that one initially was they were going to go on land, and it was a weight factor when they were scrubbing weight. They decided to go into the ocean. I don't think it's any more complicated than that. I think we can be so precise now, they think it's a whole lot safer. We can do 13 miles off San Clemente Island off near San Diego. But I'd rather be on land if I was in there, coming back to land, instead of being on the ocean. Well, I'm sorry that we ran out of time. I thought I had more time. I was trying to watch my watch for Q&A, but I'll stand by the door.
All right. Thank you
Which
all
door
very
can I
much for
take?
coming. We're going to go to that door then.